All right, so I'm here with Shaddi again, and we're talking to the record now. We're going to record this and put it on YouTube unlisted after we finish this session. And Shaddi has asked me, and the most important question I think that I deal with as a coach, and that is, what is his business model? Because right now, when I prepare for these sessions with Shaddi, it takes me a long time because you're doing so many different things, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again for the record that the most successful people have one business model that they focus on for a very long period of time, and everything else is kind of a hobby. It's okay for somebody like you to have lots of hobbies, but probably you will be more successful and more at peace with yourself, make more money too, if you have one business model that you focus on for a long period of time. And one of the things that you said in your agenda was, what is that model, and are there models out there that you haven't yet looked at? And there probably are quite a few. So at some point in the next month or two or a few months, it will be important for you to find something where your head is in it. You think, okay, this is going to work. I'm going to make some money doing, which is important. I'm passionate about it, so my heart's in it, and my gut instincts tell me, yeah, this is the right thing to do. It's the same thing when you met Lena. Your head says, yeah, we have some common values, and I'm passionate about her, which is, you just celebrated your 10th anniversary, so congratulations on that. So when you meet a girl or a boy, a partner, I guess, life partner, it helps to be passionate about her or him, to have an instinct that, yeah, this is probably going to work. And then, of course, your head has to examine whether you have enough in common to, to make it last any length of time.
Yeah.
Same thing in a business model. So those are the tests that I put to, is your head, heart, and gut involved in it. And we've looked at a few models, Shaddi. We talked about the Cadillac model, which is kind of industrial workspaces. We've talked about the Samuel model, which is kind of renovating main streets in smaller centers across Canada and the United States. Obviously, you're involved in many different aspects of real estate, but I'm going to turn the question back to you now. What do you want to do?
Yeah, so you named some of your ventures before, Bruce, and on another conversation I've had starting back in 14, 15, had a branded sandal company, a poker chip company, soccer business one time. There's a few different things. I narrowed it down, and
you'd have a lot.
They've been fun, and I've watched my dad kind of do that over his career, and I don't think that was a good thing. So that's how, when we got out of the woodworking days, I narrowed it down to at least things real estate related. Now, it encompasses my mortgage company, and encompasses Huckleberry, which I've turned down opportunities to be involved in tech companies before because they weren't. Huckleberry is real estate related, so I thought I could add value there. And then on the true real estate investing side of it, the answer is I don't know yet, but I do like how, especially in these days, we're diversified in commercial, industrial, and residential. And where, commercial is, taking a shit kicking, excuse my French there, industrial is still relatively strong, and residential is very strong. And I like and feel safer having a diverse portfolio that way. And then maybe to a fault, but I like to think of myself as an untrained numbers guy. So when something makes sense to me, whether that be a one queen or a little infill project on Dawson, even tear down and assign the sale. If it makes sense to me, that's been my criteria so far. But I would like to refine that a little bit more, and I think I would be better at it when I can continue to build my team here. And in order to do that, there's some financial things that have to be done, but I don't know what the answer is, but I do like being diversified.
Yeah.
And I know I think that's against, everything I've read in conventional knowledge and stuff like that, but
it is, because I don't have to tell you, renovating a building, for commercial and residential use is different than building from scratch. Building a multi-res
Yeah.
Building with a little bit of commercial at grade is different from building, condos. Building townhomes is very different from building, apartment buildings or condos. Building industrial or renovating and putting in micro workshops or whatever in industrial space is again very different. So you would be the only person that I coach out of now what amounts to thousands of people that wants to be to have a diversified portfolio. And so something you said a moment ago really hits home with me anyway, and that is, if you want to be a diversified real estate company, if that's what your goal is, then I think you do need to have a team. You can't be a one-man band.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel that it's you mentioned some of the past troubles financially we had to get out of in our debt servicing and things like that. So it's not not at a point that there's free cash flow to go and run out and hire right now 60, 70, 80 a year type person, or a couple of them. So still grinding right now till we get to that point. We will get there. But we're 3 or 4 years as a true real estate company. We've done it for a while, but we've only done it as a core competency for a relatively short period of time.
So one of the things that all of us face, and I faced it a long time ago when I was younger than I think you are now. I started out in the real estate industry. I think I was 28. I finished my PhD and I worked for the government of Canada. You may not know this, for 3 years. And the first afternoon I worked for the government, I thought, this is really awful. It just wasn't for me. But I had a young family and I needed, to get paid. So I stuck it out for almost 3 years. But as soon as I could, I bought a real estate company. It was called Terrace Investments Limited. And it was a very, very small company, Shaddi, very small. I think, I went from making $64,000 a year as an engineer working for the government of Canada. And the first year I went out on my own, I was making $30,000 a year. So you can imagine my wife, Dawn, was looking at me and thinking, this is, you traded a secure job with the government of Canada with great benefits and holidays and all this great stuff, pensions and everything else, for, work as an entrepreneur making less than half. And so she wasn't really pleased that first year. But within a few years, I was making quite a bit more, around $850,000 a year. And then, when we got into bigger projects, that certainly went into the seven figures, and so it was a different life, obviously, than if I'd stayed in the government. But the only way I could have that diversified portfolio that I mentioned earlier, we were doing industrial condos. Do you know what industrial condos are?
Generally, but I wouldn't mind hearing about them again.
Okay, so one of our business models, I'm just going to see if I can find it on Google Maps here. See if I can find some of them. I mean, I built a lot of them, and it was a really good business for us. I'll see if I can find them. I'll share my screen with you, Shaddi. So let's just see if I'll go to the aerial photograph and see if I can find some of the buildings I've built. And I think this might be one of them.
This is in Ottawa?
Yeah, this is in Ottawa. Yeah, I built these guys. So I don't know if you can see this here. Can you see the building sort of here?
Yeah.
And there's another one over here that I built. Again, I apologize, you can't really see it as well as I'd like it to show, but this is another one here. So in the 1980s, I had a theory that people were tired of, paying rent. And if you're a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning guy, you're a surveyor, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're an auto mechanic, whatever. So we would build these industrial condo buildings. We were probably building, 40, 50 of these a year. So an industrial condo building, it's just an industrial building. But
40 or 50 buildings?
No, 40 or 50 condo units.
Oh, okay, okay.
A typical unit back then was, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, and 3,500 square feet.
Okay.
And back then, you know, we went with like 20-foot floor to ceiling heights. Today would be much higher. And this was a fantastic business for us. It was like the house building business, but I didn't like building houses.
Okay.
And for us, the industrial condo model was fantastic. It is the house building business, but you're dealing with professionals as opposed to, you know, mom and dad, John and Jane. And, you know, as you know, home buyers are very particular.
Yeah.
So the model was pretty simple. We would build these warehouses, we would cut them up into smaller spaces, and we would sell them. And we would make, you know, on a 1,500 square foot industrial condo back then that we would sell probably back then for, you know, $125,000. We would make about $40,000 on that. Today would be much more, but when you're doing, you know, $40,000 or $50,000, you know, in terms of gross profit margin. So it was about 45,000. That was our gross profit margin. We would typically do 50 of them. You know, we would make gross margins on that of about $2 or $2.5 million. And today it would be quite a bit more. And this was one of the engines of growth. And for me, Shaddi, I needed a second in command. So there I was 28 years of age. You know, I was ambitious. I wanted to have something that was a good model and would make some money for us. And I just happened to fall into this model, and it just was perfect timing because there were so many people who just didn't want to rent. And in Ottawa, I don't know what it's like in Kitchener, Waterloo, but in Ottawa back then, and still to this day, it's very hard for entrepreneurs to own their own real estate. And so we would put, we'd put a building like this together that you see on the screen here with say 25 units, and they would sell out in a few months. And then we'd build another one and, you know, sell that out in a few months. And we would do, you know, typically 2 buildings a year. The other thing that we
do. So there's a condo corp with it that manages.
It's just like any other condo.
An exterior and stuff like that. Okay.
Exactly. It's just like any other condo corp. Sometimes I forget that you don't know as much as I do about these models because, you know, I'm 68 and you're 35. Yes, it's just like a residential condo, only kind of better. There's much less, at least when I was doing it, and even today, I think, there's much less regulation involved here because it's assumed that, you know, you're a commercial entity and you're dealing with other commercial entities. So you know, I don't like residential condos, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason for that is you can take a deposit, but you don't get to use that deposit, right? It goes into a trust account, and then you have to build the thing, and then you have to register the condominium corporation, and you don't actually get your money until all of that is done, and it can take many years. Industrial condos, we were popping them up in probably 6, 7, or 8 months, selling them out during that time period, collecting all the money, and within 12 months we would. It was more of a cash and carry business, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Bruce, you're cutting out a little bit there. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, I missed the timeline you were saying of how quickly you could pop them up.
We were building them between 6 and 8 or 6 and 9 months. And by the way, this is not like building a house. You know, you can have 25 to 30 trades working on just an ordinary house, whereas with an industrial building, you are building a shell. You don't do anything inside. You bring the electrical and the heating and ventilation and air conditioning system to the unit, and that's it. They do everything else, right? They put their own bathrooms in.
They distribute from there, yeah.
And they distribute it. If they want to have a mezzanine, knock yourself out, but you just provide the shell. And so there's about 15 trades. And you're dealing with commercial entities, so there's much less regulation involved. And they don't tend to be fussy. I really like industrial clients. They have money. They don't mind buying real estate. They like real estate. They want to own their own location. And this is a wonderful model. I'm not saying this is the model you should do, but in Ottawa today, if you were here in Ottawa today, this is a market that that needs somebody to enter, you know, because after my company went bankrupt with the Senators in the mid 2000s, nobody is building these things anymore. If you go to the large developers in Ottawa, let's say you were an auto mechanic or you were an HVAC installer, and you said, look, I'd like to, you know, have a 3,500 square foot, you know, suite or unit that I can own. They'll say, well, no, we don't do that, but we're happy to lease it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very strong, I believe there's very strong demand, and probably in Kitchener-Waterloo as well.
There's one that's being done downtown. It's not industrial, it's office.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I followed it. I haven't followed it close enough, but I keep seeing the up for sale signs. I don't know if they're like the individual units are. I don't know if they're moving yet. I'd look into that. I'm curious to look into that. But I know the first time I heard about this was I have family in the States, in Washington and Florida, both in development, and have done really well for themselves. And they were, I remember probably 10 years ago, my cousin actually has a general contracting company, and he was doing one of the renovations for it. And he was explaining an industrial condo, how it works. And
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that in
well,
Canada.
you know, today, Shaddi, if you were building them, the ceiling heights would be much, much higher. You know, 18 foot is absolutely gone. You know, Amazon wants their warehouses to be 60 feet high.
Yeah.
And Wayfair, Wayfair is talking about 90 feet.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Because both Amazon and Wayfair and these big fulfillment companies, they operate in 3 dimensions. It's not you and me on a 90-foot ladder trying to get, you know, something off the shelf. They have these incredible robots that can navigate in 3 dimensions and pick and pack.
I've actually toured the Fastenal distribution center, which is in Indianapolis before, probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I know exactly what you mean with the robots and pick and pack and filling. Is very automated at that time.
If you were building industrial condos today, you would probably go with, you know, 24 to maybe 28 foot ceiling heights, because, you know, a lot of these smaller operators, they couldn't use 60 feet. That would be ridiculous. It would cost too much. So, you know, 24 feet, 22 feet, 28 feet, something like that probably would make sense. Here in Ottawa, I'll show you another model. This is done by a client of mine. His name is Dave Spilinar. And this is the other model that you were talking about. Dave Spilinar, he runs a company called Springcrest. And this building here is an office, professional medical condo building. So just like the industrial condos, he builds these all over Ottawa, and he's very successful with it. And so if you're a medical practitioner or whatever, let's just see who's in here. Let's see, you've got a dentist in here, you've got a spa in here, you've got physiotherapy in here, but these are condo units. So he builds these purpose-built office condos all across Ottawa, and he's very successful. He made so much money though, Shaddi, he retired.
No, good for him.
Yeah, good for him, except that now we have almost no one in Ottawa producing space that entrepreneurs can own. So whether you're a dentist or you're an electrician, you're pretty much out of luck. So that's another possible model. And what I tried to get Dave to do, Dave Spilinar to do, and what we did ourselves as well, is that you're not going to be surprised about this. The other tweak on the model that we put together was when we would finish a building like this, we would keep, if we had, say, 20 or 25 industrial units, we would probably keep 3, 4, or 5 of them for our own portfolio. So we would lease out some of them.
Okay.
So you build it, but if I were going into the business today, if I were a young developer and this was a model that I was interested in doing, I would do industrial condos rather than office condos. Okay.
Yeah. Especially I'd agree with that in current times.
Yeah. Even before COVID-19 whacked the planet. I mean, I just go back to what you said when we started. You said industrial is strong, residential is very strong. But commercial office and commercial retail is very weak. So I wouldn't be really interested in doing retail condos or office condos. I would do industrial.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
They're much simpler. This is not a cheap building. You can see on the screen here. That's not inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
So that's,
No, it's well done.
no, it's
So
very well done, and they're beautiful. But you know, those office condos, you know, if they're 1,500 square feet, they sell for like $750,000.
yeah.
They're not cheap. The industrial condos,
How many square feet did you say?
it would be about 1,500 square feet, maybe a little bit smaller, and it would sell for about 750. So if you take 750,000 and you divide that by
500.
1,500 square feet, yeah, it's about $500 a square foot.
But that's like, for comparison, there's no, you're just roughed in. There's no kitchen or finishes or anything like that.
The
in
office
there, correct?
condos, no, the office and retail condos, those guys are much more demanding.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm not sure you'd do the internal fit up, but your ceiling obviously will be finished. Your lighting will be finished. Your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning will be finished. You know, certainly the perimeter walls are all finished. The flooring is finished. You know, so you probably wouldn't do more than that, but the base level finish that's required on an office or retail condo is, or certainly on the office side, Shaddi, is much greater.
Okay.
So for me, you know, I knew this market back in the 80s and 90s. I knew it really well, but it wasn't really interesting to me. But the industrial market was fantastic. The industrial guys, they don't want any help. They just give me the box and get out of my way. I'll do the rest.
Yeah. Okay,
so that is one possible model for you, but it's very important if you do something like this that you keep some of the units so that you have committed monthly recurring revenues.
So just to step back on the takeaways, I understand, like, if you want to stay diverse, it's got to have a second in command or some help with it too. But is it I don't know. I guess I got to decide, should I be focusing, or am I focusing on being diverse, I guess is
well, since you're more comfortable with a diversified portfolio, I'm okay with that as long as you have a team. And so what I was going to tell you was the very first hire that I made, and I'm going to show it to you just because you've asked, and you know, it's important stuff, and I know you're a very detailed guy, so I'll show you. All right, I'll show you this project. See if I can find it. Hang on a sec. Yeah, I think so. All right, I'll share my screen with you again. Shoot, I don't know if I'm in the right place or not. Yeah, I think so. Somewhere here. Let's see what happens here. Am I up too far? I think I am. Here we are. Yeah, so do you see this little plaza here?
Yep.
So this plaza was, so when I was getting ready to leave the government of Canada, I bought this company, Terrace Investments Limited, and this was one of the assets that the company.
Sorry, Bruce, to interrupt, because I know you've referenced Terrace a bunch. So I always meant to ask, was that a name you came up with, or it was one that you bought, or? No,
that was an existing name.
Okay, all right.
And I bought the company from 5 guys who were retiring. Murray, geez, who was it? Murray and Ed and Derek. There were 5. I thought they were really old. They're probably about the age I'm at now, but you know, I was a young fellow, I was 28, and they had this company for sale for $350,000. Okay. And they had a few assets. It was a pretty small company. They had a few. This was one of their assets, and this little building here is about 6,500 square feet, but it has a full basement, so it's about 13,000 square feet at grade and in the basement, and the whole thing was leased out to IGA. Do you know the IGA stores? The grocery stores?
The grocery stores, yeah.
Yeah, so IGA had their grocery store here, and then they had you know, kind of additional storage in the basement, and they had a big conveyor to take stuff from the basement up and down, right? So, Ed and Derek and Murray Thompson had rented this to IGA for 25 years, and they were renting it for $1.67 per square foot, triple net.
Wow. And it didn't increase over that, or?
I don't think so. So, but when I bought this, Shaddi, it was, like I said, it was $1.67 a square foot, triple net, which was, the triple net part was good. But what happened was I went to see, after I acquired the company, I went to see the IGA people, and I said, look, I'm the new landlord. They said, you're just a kid. I said, well, I'm the kid that owns this place. I said, you know, I'd like to talk about the lease. The lease is up. And for Ed and Derek and Murray and the other guys, Jerry and Jack, the fact that the lease was coming to an end was a problem, right? Because, oh my gosh, you know, it's going to be empty. But to me, as a young entrepreneur, it was an opportunity. So what I did was I said, look, I'd like to raise the rent. Oh, what do you want? I want $3.65 a square foot. And they said, well, who are you to tell us? You know, we're IGA, you're just some, you know, no-name kid. And I said, well, look, I want $3.65. So they offered me, after 25 years, they offered me an 18-cent a square foot increase. They were ready to go from $1.67 to $1.85. And I was at close to $4. So I told them no. And as you know, in commercial, there's no overholding provision. So I said, you know, your lease is up in September, and if you're not going to pay the $3.85 I want, that's fine. You're gone. Well, we would like to stay. I said, well, then you pay the rent. No, we're not doing that. So I said, okay, you're leaving. And then I called up a friend of mine, Barry Hoban, who was a young architect, and he's one of Ottawa's great architects, but back then he was young too. And so what we did was we put this, we dressed it up a little bit. We put this kind of fake roof, you know, fake dormers here. We put these pillars in.
Was it a flat roof before?
It was. And I repaved the parking lot. You could see the current owner doesn't do anything, but I repaved the parking lot, put new signage in, put nice yellow markings on it, and really cleaned it up. And what I did was I leased this space here. I leased it to Becker's Milk. It's now Circle K.
Yeah, I remember Becker's actually as a kid.
Becker's Milk. I leased it to Becker's Milk for $13 a square foot. Then I leased this space here to Active Components from Montreal, which is an electronics component. And then the downstairs, I leased to Duvers Martial Arts. So I had Duvers Martial Arts at $5.50 a square foot in the basement, Becker's at $13, and Active at, I think, $8. So the rents went from, I think, $1.67 to an average of close to $10. It was maybe $9.50 or something like that. So it went up, you know, by a factor of 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. And I sold this plaza for $1.1 million.
Wow.
So I bought the company for $350,000. It had about 200 acres of land, maybe a little bit more than that, which the fellows didn't really know what to do with. And they had this undervalued asset, which I changed. And I don't have to tell you this, you are an expert at this, that when you, you know, when you increase the income by a factor of 5 or 6, you know, the value goes up, and it did. So I sold it for $1.1 million, and you can see the new owner doesn't really take good care of it, but we did. And I made, after all of our costs were accounted for, I made about $500,000 or $600,000 of cash. And the first thing I did was I hired a young man by the name of Cyril Leader. He was a CA. He was a chartered accountant. A young man, you know, I was, by that time, I think I was.
He followed you to the Senators, did he not?
He did. He was the president of the Ottawa Senators for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
I didn't realize you were working with him long before.
Oh my God, I've been working with him for, gee, it is now, and I still do work with him. It's now going on 40 years. And he's about 10 years younger than me. So I'm 68, he'd be 58 or 59. He's now president of Myers Automotive, which is one of the big automotive groups in Canada. and he's doing very well. And, you know, I mean, as the president of the Ottawa Senators, he was making 7 figures, you know, so there you go. But he was my second in command. And I remember I interviewed Cyril, and I narrowed down the candidates to Cyril Leader and another guy. I don't remember the other guy's name. Now, the other guy had a really nice suit and great shoes, and he was very polished. You know, he was Mr. Charisma, no question about it. And Cyril was very quiet. You know, he had a bad suit and bad shoes. You know, I mean, he was just a young fellow starting out. But Cyril had, I think, a tremendous capacity for good work, and also he had very good judgment, and that's incredibly important in your team. So the very first hire I did was the guy who really helped me take that company from, I think our first year we did like $300,000 total revenues. It was really small. By 9 years later, we did $120 million a year.
Wow.
All right. So, but if I hadn't had Cyril Leader, and I'm definitely not going to share this this YouTube video with him, he'll get a big head. But if he hadn't been my number 2, my second in command, 2IC, there's no way we would have the Ottawa Senators today. Because what an entrepreneur does, like you and me, at least I do, is we make messes, and we have a team that goes behind us and cleans up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I remember hearing you say that a few times.
So you and I are the what is it? The straw that stirs the drink. And you, in my opinion, you need somebody. And I probably, you know, if you look back at that time, you know, I had about $500,000, but you'd be surprised at how fast you could spend $500,000. And I hired a top-notch guy, Cyril Leader, paid him properly, and made him my second in command. And, you know, you can always wait to hire somebody, right? You can always wait. You say, well, not this year, I'll do it next year. But I was ambitious, and there's, as I said just a moment ago, there's no possibility we would have gone from 300,000 in revenues to 120 million as a diversified company without having somebody impose organization. So I could then I could go out and create opportunities. You know, I'm good at that. But if I didn't have, you know, an organization behind me, there's no way that you can execute on those. So it's great to have, you know, vision like you and I have. We both have vision. But if you can't execute on it, it's worthless.
Mm-hmm. How did you, so, I mean, when you hired someone like that, obviously knowledgeable and a good person, how do you sort out a compensation structure for them? I would imagine they're looking for more than just a salary.
So I did not give any of these guys equity. I did not. It just, that I think is a false measure. And I'll tell you why, Shaddi. If you and I worked for Mark Zuckerberg at the first, you know, few days or months or years even of Facebook, and he wanted to reward us, you and me, with shares, we would have gladly accepted those shares. No question. But that's what everybody points to, when the reality is that most companies are lifestyle companies, and you could paper your wall with the value of their shares. So I did not incentivize the people I hired. I had probably, I'm almost certain of it, one of the best real estate teams in the world to do the things that we did, build the kind of buildings that we did. And if it hadn't been for the fact that the Canadian dollar fell out of bed, went from 90 cents to, I don't know, 62 cents, and NHL salaries went from 6.5 million Canadian dollars to 84 million Canadian dollars. You know, I would still own that company, and I would still have my team, in which case you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. But that's on me. That's not Cyril's fault. That's my fault for buying the National Hockey League team. And really, you know, nobody expected, at least I asked the president of the National Hockey League, John Ziegler, what kind of inflation we should expect in salaries. He said budget for 10%. It turned out to be much, much greater than that. And it ruined the team. And of course, it's not Ziegler's fault either that the Canadian dollar went from 90 cents to 62 cents, and NHL salaries are paid in US dollars. So it was pretty bad. But anyway, all that to say is that if you are going to be a diversified real estate company, then you need to build a team. That, in my opinion, that is absolutely essential. You cannot continue to do what you're doing with the, I wrote it down here, with the mortgage company, which is very important, with Huckleberry, with industrial property, with some commercial and some residential property. You're going to need that.
Yeah, I definitely feel that.
And what you need inside of that company is a cash engine, okay? So I need you to do some more homework and think about what this diversified company, that's what you're passionate about. Okay, let's make it work. What is the team going to look like? I need you to think about that. Who is your number two man? That's and with all due respect, again, I hope you don't publicize this, but it probably should be a man. Mm-hmm. That's your second in command. Men tend to like business. They tend to like real estate. They tend to like money. And with all due respect, again, they don't take 2 years off to have a baby.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, we had many, many fabulous young women working at Terrace Investments Limited. Fabulous. And Shaddi, when they would have a baby, we would pay them, this is back in the day, we would pay them 80% of their salary for a full year.
Oh, nice. Good for you guys.
Provided they would come back to work after a year.
Yeah.
And if they wanted, we would give them a second year. We wouldn't pay them for that. But we did so much training for these young women. I would have a conversation with every one of them. I said, we want you back. It can take a year or two. If you don't come back after 2 years, that's the end of it. But we'll keep the job open, and they would come back. But that cannot, in my opinion, cannot be your second in command.
Yeah, that I would agree with that. That makes sense.
Okay. And so I need you to think about what your first hire might be. And my recommendation would be either somebody with a financial background, because you are in the mortgage business, and of course you're doing a lot of financing, or a young civil engineer.
Okay, yeah.
And my other recommendation would be that they are young. And the reason for that, Shaddi, is, in my opinion, you have to train them in your way of thinking. So if you hire somebody who's 40, he will bring a lot of baggage with him. Some of it good and some of it not so good.
Yeah.
And I would rather have somebody who's anywhere between 26 and 32, who's really just kind of starting out in his career, that's a little bit younger than you, that you can train. But I would look at a CA, probably an accountant, a financial background, or a civil engineer. Either one of those guys will. And in fact, you're probably going to put a team together. You're going to have an engineer and you're going to have a finance guy. But the first hire would be one of those two.
And so with the CA level, and I'm just making notes on the other screen if you see me look away, Bruce, but
no worries.
What's the importance?
We're recording this too, so if you need to go back, you can refer to it.
Yeah, true. So the CA background, what importance would you have on having some understanding of real estate and real estate investing at that young of a hire?
So your hire has to, whether he is a CA or a civil engineer, they have to have a passion for real estate.
Okay.
Have to. And Cyril was very passionate about real estate. You know, as a CA, he worked for, I think, PricewaterhouseCoopers or Clarkson Gordon, one of those big accounting firms. So he had seen, service businesses, automotive businesses, real estate businesses, tech businesses back then. Mm-hmm. But of all of the businesses that he had worked in, they would do audited statements and stuff like that. He thought real estate was where it was at. Now, in terms of compensation, what I did, what I found was what really, really counted for these young people was not equity in the company, which I did not make available, but was a decent salary, a reasonable bonus structure, and in kind. And so, for example, when I was building townhouses, I don't really like building houses, but I built you know, maybe 1,200 of the damn things. And
Wow.
when we were building towns, you know, we had beautiful, beautiful townhouses. And you know, I went to my top guys, Cyril Leader, and I said, look, we're building these beautiful townhouses. You know, I'm going to sell you one at cost.
Okay.
And that's how Cyril got his first home. Let me see if I can I'll actually show it to you. I mean, this is relevant to building a team. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. So yeah, I think it's here. Yeah. So I don't know if you could see this group of townhouses here.
Yeah.
So they're just beautiful, all brick. They're big, and
That's not your typical town that's being built today in
oh my
Kitchener,
God,
at least. That's
I mean, you'll see. You know, I mean, you could see even back then we were doing things with the lower level. You know, and so there, I think these were executive townhomes, and they were absolutely gorgeous, designed by Barry Hoban, who helped me with the plaza. And I think Cyril's first house was actually this one. So he bought an end unit. He had a little side yard. He and his wife Lydia were starting a family, and so I paid them a decent wage, and my bonus structure, Shaddi, was ad hoc. And what I mean by that is I told Cyril when he came to work for me, I will make sure that everybody who works for me as we build this company gets a bonus twice a year. Once in the summer before you go on holidays, and once around Christmas time before you go on your Christmas holidays. But I am not going to put it in your compensation package. You're just going to have to trust me. Because what I found, Shaddi, is if you put in incentives, like you sell this much, you do this much of financing for me, you do this, this, and this, you get this percentage of that, then that's all they focus on.
yeah. Yeah.
And then you can't really build a team, because let's say you have, you know, Terrace eventually became 350 employees, but when you have a small team of say 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 people, which is kind of where we were at in the first few years, if they all have incentives, you know, if you sell something or lease something, you get an incentive, then they're competing with each other to get that client.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want that. So
Yeah, that makes
all of the
sense.
bonuses were based on the company's performance. And this company was making between 8, 10, and $12 million a year within a very few years of hiring Cyril. I mean, real profit. So
Okay.
you know, they were getting in-kind compensation. You know, they would pay the cost of this house, and I didn't care if they moved in or they just flipped it. It's up to them. But in every case, I think they would get a house for me or a townhouse for me at cost. They would live in it for a year or two, and then they'd sell it to make a bunch of money. And of course, that was tax-free.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
sell your principal
Residence.
residence after
Yeah.
living in it for 6 months or a year or 2 years, and you make an extra $80,000, it's tax-free. So all of a sudden, my employees within a very short period of time were making real money. So I would allow them to participate in projects, but not in the equity of the company.
Okay. Yeah.
So for example, when we were building 25, industrial condo with 25 units, somebody like Randy Sexton or Greg Graham or Jeff Kyle or Mark Bonneau or any of the other guys who worked with me, they would often come to me and say, hey, can I buy one of those for my own portfolio? Absolutely. Right? And
Yeah.
we wouldn't give it to them at cost. The first home or first townhouse, we would give it to them at cost. But when they were buying industrial condos from the company, we would give them, 5 or 10% off. So they would definitely get a good deal, but it wasn't, 30% below market. It was probably more like 5 or 10% below market. So you can compensate people that way. And the other important, I think, form of compensation that I used and that I recommend you use is psychic cash.
What's that?
Glad you asked.
What's psychic cash?
Psychic cash. For example, one Christmas, I gave my top 10 or 12 executives large screen Sony picture-in-picture TVs.
Okay.
And, you know, they don't, I mean, they cost, back in those days, they weighed over 200 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had, you know, picture-in-picture, which we thought, oh, that's so cool. And they cost, Shaddi, back then, $3,500 each.
Wow. I remember, I think I remember some of those.
Yeah, they were really expensive. But I found if you gave somebody a year-end bonus of $10,000 or even $20,000 of cash, you know, they had to pay some tax and it just went into their bank account and then it disappeared. If you gave them a $3,500 TV, you know, one of these big pictures, they put it in their living room or their rec room or something like that. And every time their kids turn it on, their wives turn it on, they're thinking, this company that Cyril works for, or Randy or Mark or Jeff, et cetera, Jimmy, you know, that's a great company. That's psychic.
Yeah.
That's psychic cash.
We've gone through that bit in the woodworking days. We used to with the employees every Christmas, we'd have a Christmas party. We'd get everyone a turkey, and then most years we'd be able to do a little bit of a bonus. And no one remembered the bonus, but everyone remembered the turkey.
and what I liked was I liked durable items because turkeys you could eat.
Yeah, something that reminds
those
them of
Sony picture-in-picture TVs would work for 20 years.
Yeah.
And every time, you know, 20 years later, Cyril would still be, and his kids who are growing up would still be turning that thing on or remembering us. So every Christmas, you know, they would get some kind of in-kind psychic, I call it psychic cash, because these things are much more valued, in my opinion, than just money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So if you're going to have a diversified business model, then I do think you should look at industrial condos as being part of that because you need a cash engine.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm afraid of is you've got so many good ideas that you will at some point run short of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying that you should do it, but I'm saying you should consider doing it. So in terms of the models that I like, and they do all come back to the Shaddi workspaces. The Shaddi workspace model I really like. It's industrial. And if you combine that with, you know, for example, this building of yours, I think it's on Sydney, this guy here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on it. You're on it.
This is the long skinny one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could condominiumize that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you should do that, but you could easily condominiumize that. You know, I mean, hire a lawyer, get a surveyor, you have an industrial condo in no time, and you could sell off some of the units and keep some of them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I see what you mean.
So one of the things I'd like you to think about is if you're going to have a diversified real estate company, will the industrial condo market, industrial condo model be part of it? Will the Shaddi workspaces, I know you don't like that name, but Shaddi workspaces be part of it? I think those would be, I think, important components and cash engine. What other kinds of cash engines have you got, Shaddi, other than your mortgage business?
Yeah, I mean, there's mortgage business, and then there's always seems to be one or two some sort of flips on the go, like Dawson being one of them. But most of it is from the portfolio right now, and that's part of the succession planning conversation that we've had, and that I've got to definitely get to a point that you know, my parents can get everything and more than they want out of it, so that it's not constantly a drain on the cash coming out of it right now.
Okay. So
it's tough to plan and budget for that until that part of it is sorted out, and we are working through that and towards that.
I understand that, but the committed monthly recurring revenues that you get from your portfolio, that's great. That is the holy grail. That is the objective. But having a strong cash engine, flips are not predictable. I don't have to tell you that. And if you know, if you ask me whether you should flip this guy for an extra, you know, $80,000 to $100,000? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So the other one with the mortgage business, and we haven't talked about this too much yet, Bruce, and I wanted to sometime, but I do commercial and residential, as you know about. There's also a fund that I'm affiliated with in town called Bright Path Capital.
what's it called?
Bright Path.
Yeah, I think you mentioned
Capital.
it to me before. Yep.
Yeah, and they, so as part of it, I've got to know the guy well. I believe in it. We've invested in it. They pay 12% annual return to investors. It's wired directly into your account monthly. So we have some investment in there, but I'm also compensated for raising money with them, and it is 2% of the amount that I raised on a recurring basis, as long as the funds stay in there. So I have been in the minimal free time I have, I've been trying to continue to grow that. So you know, somewhere around 2 million raised so far, and want to continue that. So there's I guess on the cash engine side of it right now, there's not maybe a good answer, but kind of like the portfolio, it's diversified from a few different sources too.
So I'd like to talk more about the fund, but do some flips. That's fine. You know what you're doing. Do that. That'll help with your cash flow. But the cash engine is really, really important for Terrace Investments Limited. Our principal cash engines were the industrial condo sales, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that we did was we did land development. So we would put roads, water mains, and sewers into the ground, and we would sell lots to home builders. And you know, because I don't really like building homes. I mean, even though I built a lot of them, but I certainly enjoyed, you know, the B2B market much better. So I enjoyed industrial condo sales because it's B2B, and I enjoyed producing, you know, we produced thousands of lots, and that we would make, you know, bottom line profit in that division, $8, $10, or $12 million a year, regular as clockwork. Because I don't have to tell you, home builders hate dealing with the city, whether it's the city of Ottawa or Waterloo or Kitchener or San Francisco or Portland. You know, home builders just want to build homes. They don't really want to deal with all of the rigmarole in getting subdivisions approved, excuse me. We did that. And so, you know, that was a big part of our 120 million a year in sales. I don't remember what it would have been at least half of the volume that we were creating. It was a very, very strong business for us. And again, the business
now that was annually, that was every year that
120 million. Yeah, we were doing about 120 million a year in a diversified real estate company, and probably a little bit more than half of that was land development. I'm talking about gross.
Okay.
You know, and our net on the industrial condos would have been around $2 or $2.5 million of gross profit. But the sales would have been, you know, if you're selling 50 at 200,000, sales would have been probably 10 million a year. And we had other things that we were doing as well. But you do need some kind of a cash engine. So I want you to think about who your second in command is going to be. And I want you to think about a cash engine other than just relying on Shaddi to be clever and finding flips.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a model. That's just Shaddi being clever. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you'll burn out doing that.
Yeah, and it's not.
What I want is I want you to create a machine where you turn the crank and the sausages come out.
Yeah.
You turn the crank and the sausages come out. All right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I need you to do some homework on that. And I want to show you, since we're talking about, so in terms of your possible models, I mean, really the Samuel model was more you than me. That was the Sarnia model, right? So I want you to think about the Samuel model for yourself. I want you to think about the industrial condo model for yourself. I want you to think, and that goes together with the Cadillac workspaces too. I think that those are great. Now, in terms of the Bright Path Fund, you've heard me talk about the Mad River structure till you're probably sick of hearing me talk about it.
No, I've heard about it, and I think we've kind of gone in depth once into it, but it's not. We haven't discussed that a ton yet.
All right. So what is what is the name of the guy who runs the Bright Path Fund?
Blake Albright.
How do you spell his last name?
Albright.
Okay.
And I bet if you poke around, they do quite a bit. So they do Windsor to London, and they skip over GTA. They largely skip over GTA because of
I bet
volatility.
you I've run into those guys.
Yeah, Windsor to Ottawa. Sorry, so
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
going to say they're in
I'm
Ottawa,
sure,
Canada.
I'm sure I've seen their name on transactions. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the discussions I think you should have with Blake would be about adding a new dimension to his fund. I have two funds that I advise. One is the Align Mortgage Corporation, and the other is the Castle Bay Alliance Mortgage Corporation. And at least one of those two funds, and maybe both of them, are going to add a Mad River component, okay? And this is probably the most profitable part of the fund. And I'll
So can you just give me a quick refresher on the Mad River part
I
of
will.
it, Bruce? Okay.
You know me, I'm a professor. You can't stop me giving you detail. You know, sometimes I give too much detail, but Shaddi, you are the one of my favorite clients, if you don't mind me saying, but one of my favorite clients because you don't mind the detail, you want the detail, and I respect that about you. You know, other people just say, give me the high level, but you really actually want the detail. So the way the Mad River fund works, or this would be part of Bright Path, it's only part of it. I mean, Bright Path would continue to offer first and second mortgages. It would continue to do what it does, but it would also have part of the fund would be a Mad River fund. And what it would do is, let's say Shaddi comes to Bright Path and he says, look, I've got this wonderful project. It costs $1 million to buy. I'm going to make all kinds of improvements and animations to it. It's going to be worth $2 million in a year or two or three after I finish it. So you go to Bright Path or you know, Align or Castle Bay or 100 other funds, and you get a first mortgage, say, of 65% loan to value, and it's $1 million acquisition. So you've got $650,000 that's committed, but you need another $350,000 to close.
Yeah.
And then you check your wallet, and you find that your wallet has, say, $20,000 in, but you need 350. So what Align does, and what I'm trying to get Castle Bay to do, and maybe Bright Path will do it, is they will put in most of the equity needed, but they won't put it in as equity, because let's say you had $20,000 and Bright Path has $330,000 to make. We're just simplifying it, okay? So you're buying a property for $1 million. First mortgage is $650. You need $350. Forgetting closing costs, renovation costs, all of that. Just simple. And Shaddi's got $20,000, and Bright Path says, this is a great project. We'll put in the rest of the money that's needed for it. But they put in, say, $10,000 as true equity. So you've got $20,000 in it, and they've got $10,000 in it. They own a third, and you own 2/3. Because as an entrepreneur like you don't really want to. If you put in $20,000, and they put in $330,000 of equity, they would own 90% of it. You would own 10% of it. That's not good for an entrepreneur. And I'm going to tell you, it's not good for the fund either. And this is why. If they own 90% of the project and Shaddi owns 10% of it, they have to run it. You know, you might say, I'll run it, but you'll lose interest within a fairly short while, because you only got 10% ownership, and you go, I'm putting too much time in for 10%. So the fund actually wants you to own 2/3, and they would own 1/3, because you're the guy worried about putting tenants in place, doing the renovations, doing the animations, etc. Mm-hmm. So what happens is they put in $10,000 of true equity, you put in $10,000 of true equity, and the other $320,000 that you need, they put in as a second mortgage. Okay, if you look at that Belleville thing that I'm doing, it's very similar to this.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And so the second mortgage, maybe it's 8%, 10%, 12%, whatever their normal rate is. So they put in $330,000 as a second mortgage, getting 10, 12%, whatever, 15%, I don't know. And they put it in for a term of 1 to 3 years. So now, and typically we capitalize the interest, because you're an entrepreneur, you've got to make this thing work. And if you've got payments coming out every month, it's pretty tough on you for a lot of entrepreneurs anyway. So usually we capitalize the interest, but it doesn't have to be. And then, you hope that the property goes up in value, the mortgages hopefully are coming down, you open up enough room. So within 1 to 3 years, you refinance the building and you pay out both the first mortgage and the second mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from the point of view of the fund, BrightPath, they now own 1/3 of a fabulous project for $10,000.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So that's the take care of the difference between just a straight second
Right.
mortgage or second mortgage
And
financing.
you're a real estate professional. You know that if the fund owns 1/3 of project after project after project that they like, that their internal rate of return is probably going to come close to doubling. All right, because they've got an ownership interest, and hopefully the properties go up in value, mortgages go down, and they own, and so the adjusted cost base for the assets they're acquiring in real estate are extremely low. And what we've found with the Mad River structure is if you have a good team, and let's say BrightPath had some really good entrepreneurs, is if you did 3 deals with that same entrepreneur, then you can get into this thing that I call the non-partnership partnership model.
Yeah.
Where if Shaddi did 3 identical projects after, maybe a decade of it, you could say, look, to the BrightPath fund, look, you own 1/3 of these 3 buildings that I own 2/3 of. Let's separate out. Which one do you want? Okay, I'll keep number B, says BrightPath, and Shaddi keeps A and C.
So with that model, or with the fund model, though I know a lot of them, BrightPath included, but they're mandated not to go above a certain loan to value on properties. And in that model, you're in the 90s. You'd be in.
Oh, you're probably 98% loan to value.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is it's private equity money. It's not really a mortgage corporation. If it's a regulated industry and it forbids you from, say, going over 85% loan to value, fine. That just stays in the mortgage corporation. But you can have a private equity fund. You know the term private equity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This model that I'm describing has made billionaires, maybe even trillionaires, but certainly billionaires, because the private equity funds do exactly this model.
Okay.
This is exactly what they do. They don't call it Mad River. That's my term, right? But this is exactly what private equity does. And so you will find, and talk to Blake about it, and you have it recorded. If you want to share it with Blake, that's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't share it with anybody, but you can. But what you would say to Blake is, if regulations prevent BrightPath from doing it, you can have the BrightPath Equity Fund. Right?
Yeah.
You can have the BrightPath Private Equity Fund with a different, legal structure to it. But it is a fantastic model. And as I told you before, I think, but if not, I'm telling you now, is that in addition to everything else, to protect the fund, just as I did with the Belleville thing, all of the investors have in their loan agreements both power of sale provisions and foreclosure provisions.
So how does that work then exactly with those two?
So what happens
in a liquidation event?
Exactly. So let's say BrightPath, a private equity fund. So BrightPath Private Equity Fund. One of the criteria is you should only invest. BrightPath should only invest in things that they want to own. In other words,
okay.
if Shaddi comes along and he's got, I'm going to build a chicken ranch in Tuktoyaktuk, it's probably not something that BrightPath wants to own.
Yeah.
So you, Shaddi, and me, and BrightPath, and everyone else should never lend money to anyone unless it's a project that you are prepared to own. I think the power of sale provision is retarded. Excuse me for using a politically incorrect term, but under power of sale provisions, you have to put it on MLS. You have to. It has to be exposed to the market. It has to be labeled power of sale. The property immediately gets a stigma. It is the stupidest process imaginable. Foreclosure is quite different. So BrightPath, let's say Shaddi runs into some trouble. BrightPath says, Shaddi, you did your best. We're foreclosing. So you own 2/3 of that building. they own 1/3, but if they foreclose, your 2/3 is extinguished, right? You're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they apply to the court and they get the property in their name. Then they put their own property manager in place. They kick out the bad tenants. They improve it. They go forward with the plan. They pay out the
Yeah.
first mortgage. They own it. And then after a couple of years, when the market gets better, the building gets better, they can sell it if they want to, or just keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not forced to sell it, right? You understand? And you are certainly not going to sell it as a power of sale, because that just stigmatizes the hell out of your property.
Yeah.
So you put in both power sale provisions and foreclosure provisions, but in my opinion, you would only use foreclosure provisions in almost every case. So the other thing too about this is that, so Shaddi, when he goes to Bright Path Private Equity Fund, he has to pay to apply. You have to apply for this. This is not standard. I mean, you have to apply for a mortgage too, but this is an application, and you would probably charge the entrepreneur $1,500, just to review their application. That would be non-refundable. So there's obviously a fee, and with the Aligned Fund, they actually have a middle-aged woman, and entrepreneurs, they send in their proposals, real estate entrepreneurs. This lady, she knows how to evaluate. I've trained her. And she evaluates them, and then the few that she likes, they trickle up, and so then the loan committee, the private equity loan committee at Align, then looks at it. So if they get 100 applications, they probably are only thinking that maybe, a few, 4 or 5 might be suitable.
Yeah.
And so rather than you having to, or Blake having to evaluate 100. But that's a profit center. You understand? I mean, if you get 50 applications, in a year, and you charge them $1,500, or in 6 months, you're not paying a middle-aged lady that much money to review them. So you actually can make a little bit of money on that. So there's an application fee. And then there's the other standard stuff that you would know from your mortgage brokerage. There's lender fees, there's legal fees, and all of that is paid by the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. I've enjoyed working with them. I believe in them. I believe in them more from an investment side, and it's maybe a bit of a double-edged sword, but they're not the cheapest lender on the market. So, I mean, even on the mortgage side, if I have a client who's looking for something private, I don't take them there. There are other,
there's other
money out there. That's kind of the not conflict, but I don't know. I guess battle I've had to think about before.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you should do it with BrightPath, but one of the things I did think about when I looked at your agenda this morning is I really do think, Shaddi, that you probably could run your own fund.
Yeah, if I focused on that, I wouldn't. I would agree with you. I think I know where to find what I don't know, and over a little bit of time would learn it quickly. It's not one on the radar yet, and one that actually with my license too. So I'm actually an agent, not a full broker, and I would have to do the broker and a couple other components of it too.
So anyway, so I need you to do some homework, and there are a couple of other models that I thought I would show you as well, and then we'll go on to the rest of your agenda. Let's see what I got here. Oh yeah, this one here. Let me show you this one. All right. Oops. I'm gonna find you. All right. Share screen. One of my clients out in BC, in British Columbia, what he does is he builds, basically he builds gigaplex apartments. So he builds towers of things that you see here on it. And I've taught you about the gigaplex. So this is his design for a new project that he is building in White Rock, British Columbia. So it's kind of south, I think, of Vancouver. Very, very, very pricey place. Oh my gosh. I don't know what the average price of a condo is in White Rock, but it's in the stratosphere. So what he does is he builds buildings based on sort of the concepts that I've been working on for years now. And this is, we're just working on the design so you can see some notations here. So this is a 1-bedroom apartment here, a balcony here. You know what a lock-off suite is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I call this the gigaplex. You know, out in BC, they call them lock-off suites, but it's exactly the same kind of thing. So this lock-off suite has its own door to the corridor. It's double loaded, so you can access it here. It's got, the main apartment is here. This one here is a 2-bedroom unit, basically, but they can be 3 bedrooms or even 4 bedrooms, but most of them are 2 and 3, not 2, 3, and 4. And so what is possible is you could buy one of these condo units here, Shaddi. You and Lena, as young people, could live in the 1-bedroom apartment, and you could put this on Airbnb. You could run a business out of it. You could have a roommate. I mean, you know, there's an infinite number of different uses.
Yeah.
In his case, what he's doing, his buildings are focused on older folks who have money, who are buying these units. So an elderly lady, for example, she'll buy these 2 units together. And this unit here, she'll put her caregiver in there.
Okay. Yeah.
So in White Rock, it costs like $5,000, $6,000, or $7,000 a month to go into a retirement residence. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, an elderly resident she sold her home in Vancouver for a couple $1,000,000. She can buy one of these, you know, sort of things, and she can have somebody with a PSW, personal support worker, living right there. So it's not a retirement residence, because I don't really like retirement residences. Even before COVID-19, I didn't like them. But then when COVID whacked the planet and killed all these elderly people, I really hated it. So
yeah, I know what you mean.
This is a mixed demographic. So what he does, his model, Shaddi, is he'll build probably he's a young man like you, over the next you know, decade or 2, he'll probably build 30 of these buildings. And his cash engine is he will sell some of his buildings. We're doing one now with, he's selling this one in White Rock. He's probably going to sell to BC Housing.
What exactly is that, BC Housing? Is that kind of low income or lower income?
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing, okay.
Yeah, and they have money, by the way. I'm not talking about the people who are resident there. The people, you know, BC Housing has real money. I do work for the Ottawa Community Housing Corporation and the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. The Toronto Community Housing has several $billion in assets, and Ottawa Community Housing is not that far, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So these people have money. Okay. And so they can afford to buy these buildings brand new. So what Paul does is he builds them, and he pre-sells them. We're just now negotiating with BC Housing and one other group. You know, he'll sell this building. It's got 60 units in it. He'll sell it for, I think, about $45 million. And his cost to build it is probably $36 million, maybe.
Okay.
You know, he would like to keep some of the units, but both BC Housing and the other charity that we're talking to said, no way, we want the whole building, including the commercial at grade. Yeah. But I said to Paul, listen, Paul, it's not the worst thing in the world for you to make $7 or $8 million.
No, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. And I said, so
how many units did you say this one was?
60 units. 60 units. Okay. You know, I mean, to develop in Vancouver, anywhere near Vancouver, the costs, you don't even count them. They're just so high. It is, yeah. It is really ridiculous. I mean, it's expensive in Ottawa and Kitchener, Waterloo as well, but nothing like Vancouver. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, we're negotiating that. And by the way, part of the funding for it is we're asking BC Housing for a 15% non-refundable deposit on the agreement of purchase and sale. And that's the equity that that Paul needs in order to build this thing.
Okay, so he would insure that, I guess, to be able to use it, or no, non-refundable, meaning it's earned.
It's non-refundable. I mean, okay. You know, it's you know, now mind you, he has to deliver the building. I think it's going to end up being around $45 million. He has to deliver it. I mean, once you sign that agreement of purchase and sale and take I think it's about a $6.5 million cash deposit. Yeah, you're on the hook. But what we did, or what he's done, I've been coaching him through this, is he got a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price, PCL. You know PCL, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they built the Palladium, the Canadian Tire Center for me, and I got a guaranteed maximum price out of them, $240 million for that building, and we delivered it for $236 million. So once you have a GMP from a credible builder like PCL, you can finance against that.
But so the 15% non-refundable deposit. So is there some kind of mezz debt or something in there, or he's got a financing arrangement?
Very good. Yeah, the security for them. I told Paul we're going to be fair to the charity and the not-for-profit. They're going to register a second mortgage postponable to construction financing. And it has both in there power sale and
foreclosure.
So that BC Housing and the other charity that's involved, if Paul doesn't deliver, they can kick them to the curb, and it's their project.
Okay.
Right.
So 15% non-refundable, and they held a second in behind then.
Correct, Amondo. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, and then probably 65 to 75 construction financing.
Yeah, we got because it's involving CMHC. We haven't. We're not there yet. You know Matt Slobodian, right?
You've spoken about him before.
Yeah. If you're ever going to do a building like this, you need to talk to Matt. He works for Canada ICI. It's a finance, it's like you. He's a mortgage broker, really. But he specializes in this stuff. This is his thing. So we have from CMHC, we have 100% loan to value, a takeout at 1.45% for 50 years.
Wow.
It's like really? Free money. And that Matt's working, it's not finished yet, Shaddi, but Matt Slobodian's working on that with Paul and me. So when you put all of those pieces together, you can build these things. And the plan now, the change in the model that we made was if he builds 30 of them, because he's selling them to not-for-profits and charities and that sort of thing, and for affordable housing, I think the charity is right and the not-for-profits are right that they don't want him to retain any part of the building. And probably from Paul's point of view, it's probably good not to. But if he builds 30 of them, he is going to keep 4, 5, or 6 of them for his own portfolio. And as I said, he's about your age. And if he builds 30 of them, he will probably be able to have 4, 5, or 6 of them, which are debt-free. And they produce gross operating income of about $900,000 to $1.1 million. So if you have 5 of them, within 10 or 15 years, if he's able to do this, and I think he can execute, he's really good. He's just like you. He can execute on it. He will have 5 buildings probably producing $5 million a year in committed monthly recurring revenues. That's his objective, and that's his model. And one of the things about Paul is he's very focused, and he's not going to do 10 other things. He's not going to try and do flips at the same time.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Listen, but I'm here to help you build a diversified real estate company because that's where your passion is.
Yeah, still figuring that part out, and if that is the route, but it is. Right now where we sit, I like that, especially in the COVID days. There's a mix of res, commercial, and industrial.
Correct.
Within it for sure.
I'm going to show you a riff on this model, okay?
Sure.
All right.
And then just the last, I do want to leave a little bit of time for the first one on the agenda, Bruce.
I absolutely want to go through every aspect of it, and I'm here for you, Shaddi. The key thing here is that I really, really want you to think through your business model because it is the most important thing. Okay, building a team and having a model, that you are, you're all in on. That's where we're going. So this is, can you see this should show up here, something called the Cedars. Can you see it on my screen?
Yeah.
I'll see if I can get it a little bigger here. Yeah, all right. So can you see this floor plan here?
Yep.
Does that not look a lot like what Paul is doing in White Rock?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yep.
But these are townhomes or condos. Okay. But they're townhomes. So this is a the other model that Paul is, has adopted is a very complicated model. This is much simpler. So this is another client of mine And no, I don't think you've met him yet. His name's Paul Murphy. He is the owner of Calabogie Peaks.
Okay.
It's a major resort. I mean, Paul is worth, I'm sure, tens and tens of millions of dollars, but it's a major resort. It's got skiing in the winter, snowboarding. It's got golf in the summer, lake. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I've heard of it before. It's in the Ottawa area, is it
It
not?
is. It's about an hour and 15 minutes northeast of Ottawa.
Okay.
So, so he has been building these as towns and condos, and they're called the Cedars. That's what he calls the units. And again, he has a lock-off suite here, which is about 366 square feet here, has its own entrance. It's double loaded next to the apartment here. We blew out 32 of these units in less than 60 days in Calabogie Peaks, population 1,400.
Wow. Okay. These are the ones I think you mentioned when we were talking about Belleville that weren't moving for a little while, and then you took over the.
Well, we rebranded it, right? So what we did was we took them off the market. I asked Paul and his partner Jim Hemlin to take it off the market for a month, give it a breather, and we put it back on the market with all of the force of the branding of the Gigaplex behind it. That you could, if you're a young person now, you don't have to live in Ottawa anymore because you can work remotely. Come to Calabogie, enjoy a wonderful lifestyle, paddleboarding in the summer and snowboarding in the winter. And you and your girlfriend or you and your boyfriend or your partner could live in this beautiful one-bedroom apartment, that you own. And then you have this lock-off suite that you can put on Airbnb or do you could run your home-based business out of it. You could, whatever. And once we changed the branding and marketing on this, we blew out Century 21 with my group of realtors and with Paul and Jim. We blew out those 32 units in 60 days. So in a small town of 1,400 people, within about an hour and a bit from Ottawa, we now think the market will allow us to do 150 of these a year.
Okay. And are you attributing some of that to people moving out of the core and more into the suburbs and the work from home and all of that? Okay.
So I have clients in Rockland doing this model. A small town. It's bigger than Calabogie Peaks, but Rockland probably has, I'm guessing 7,000 or 8,000 people. I've got another client doing it in Carleton Place, which is about 10,000 people. So it doesn't have to be, this is, again, a simpler model, but the cash flow that Paul and Jim are seeing, you don't really make money these days running a ski hill, Shaddi.
Yeah.
You make money in real estate.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Whistler?
That's my I would like to say second home, but I absolutely love it out there. Yeah, former competitive skier actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and freestyle and park.
Wow.
So moguls and jumps but
No way. Oh my God, you must be really good.
Back in the day, yeah.
I've been going to Whistler since 1980.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I bought 4 lots in Whistler Village back in 1982 when nobody had heard of Whistler Village.
Oh, okay.
Right in the heart of Whistler Village. I bought 4 lots for $25,000 each, and I forgot about it. And then in 1990, when we needed some money for the Ottawa Senators, I needed to raise some cash. And so I called a friend of mine who's a realtor in Vancouver, and I said, look, I got these 4 lots in Whistler Village. I have no idea what they're worth. Can you check it out for me? And he said, oh, sure. You send me the information. So I did. So he came back to me. So I paid $100,000 for these 4 lots back in the day. And
each or each or for 4?
$25,000 each.
Wow.
So I bought $100,000 cash. I have a brother and 2 sisters, so I bought one for each of the kids. But we never did anything with them. The village grew up around these lots, and we owned them. And so he calls me back and says, yeah, I can get you between 500 and 550. I said, that's great. It's gone up from, $100,000 for the 4 lots to, 500 or 550.
You meant per lot.
He said, no, Bruce, yeah, exactly. He said, that's per lot. I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, no. So he sold them, and we got, after commissions, I think we cleared about $2 million.
Oh, wow, good for you guys.
And guess where that money went?
Sends? Yeah.
NHL teams have this nasty habit, money goes in, but never out.
Doesn't come out. Yeah, quickest way to turn a billionaire into a millionaire, I think, is a quote, is to buy a sports team.
Exactly. I should have given that friggin' money to my wife.
Do you know what the lots turned into today?
I have no idea.
Now?
Oh, yes, I do, because they were big lots. They were back in the village. You know, the lots were 80 feet by 120.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they were all next to each other. I think they built like these amazing like condo buildings on them. Oh, they're not single family homes. I mean, I bought them just, you know, I said, look, well, I just loved Whistler and Blackcomb. I said to my sister Brenda and my brother Peter and my sister Kathy, I said, oh my God, we got to buy some lots there. We'll just build a little house on each of them, and we'll go out there, you know, every Christmas and enjoy ourselves. And they said, oh, great, yeah, let's do it. And it wasn't a lot of money for me. You know, I was making a good amount of money. So, you know, if your company is making $15 million a year in profits, to spend $100,000 on 4 lots is not the biggest decision you'll ever make. So I didn't even think about it. I just said, sure, let's buy them. And then, you know, I needed an extra couple $1 million to close with the NHL. I sold the lots, and that's where the money went. Never got it back.
Oh, there you go. So are you a skier or snowboarder or anything?
I tried snowboarding, but I was too old. So I've been skiing since I could walk.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good skier, but probably not at your level.
It's all about enjoying it and getting out now. But big fan of it out there. We try and make it out when we can once a year. That's where we got engaged, actually, was in
Whistler. How nice. Oh
yeah.
I just love it up there, and it's my favorite place. I have a bunch of buddies from Australia, and they love to ski. And so we meet there, and we really enjoy ourselves. You know, it's a kind of a guide trip, though.
Yeah, nice. We do one with when we can, one with the couples one, and then one that's a buddy and I have done. Both busy, but both love to ski. So there's a flight out of Pearson that you can get on at about 6 at night on a Thursday that gets you to the village by 11. You ski Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Red eye back Sunday night. And you can be in the office for 7:30 Monday morning. It's a little bit of a rough Monday, but it's a trade-off for world-class skiing.
Well, when the boys come from Australia, they come for 2 weeks because it's a long way.
Yeah.
You know, I only go up for the week, but you know, and you know, I'm not much of a drinker, but during that week, I might have a few drinks.
Have some fun,
and it's really nice. You know, these are guys I went to school with, you know, at the Australian National University in Canberra. So we're going to talk about the rest of your agenda. I promise this is the last thing I'm going to show you on the models. Okay. Would you like to get some free land, Shaddi?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll show you this model. So this is
always.
I'm not kidding. This is how you get some free land. So my friend Paul, my coaching client Paul out in BC, we're working through a number of scenarios where he's going to get some free land. Truly free land. Absolutely free land to build these buildings that he's interested in.
Okay.
And it's based on a model that I worked on with Bill Malhotra. Bill Malhotra is the founder of Claridge. It's one of the big developers in Ottawa. And
okay.
Bill, excuse me, I met Bill, it's got to be 35 years ago now. He came originally from India, and he came to see me when he was a young man, so was I, when I was a land developer. And he bought his first 75 townhouse lots from me. It was a super charming guy, spoke perfect English. He'd gone to school, I think, in Britain. Many well-to-do people in India had sent their children to school in the UK, and he came to Canada. And he has the largest single, he's got the largest single line of credit with the Bank of Nova Scotia of any company in Canada.
1 second, Mike. Here. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
So Bill Claridge has the largest single line of credit with the Bank of Nova Scotia of any company in Canada, $1.2 billion.
Wow, okay.
He bought his first lots from me. So this is a property here. You can see this is a map of Ottawa. This is where the parliamentary precinct is. Have you been to Ottawa?
It's been a while, but I'm familiar with that area.
Well, this is the Parliament buildings, and this is the Chateau Laurier, and this is the lot that Bill got for free.
Right beside
right beside
Chateau Laurier. Wow.
And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Give me 1 second here. All right. So this is the Chateau Laurier.
Yeah.
Behind the Chateau Laurier is the parliamentary buildings, and this is a corner lot where, if professional baseball player could hit the ball from here to hit the Peace Tower.
Yeah.
So would you consider this a good development site for Shaddi?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
It would not be too bad. So what I did, or what Bill did, and I helped a little bit with, was this site is owned by the National Capital Commission, which is a government agency that owns and controls a lot of the land in the national capital. Okay.
Okay.
And we went to the NCC, and we put in an offer to buy this land, but we said, we're prepared to build, Mr. Malhotra is prepared to build this condo building on a land lease. Would you land lease it to Mr. Malhotra? And we'll pay, or Mr. Malhotra will pay, land lease over 50 years with an option to renew for another 45 years. So 95-year land lease. And we negotiated with the National Capital Commission. And I said to them, this is no different than the model that the Holy Roman Catholic Church uses. The church is the Vatican is one of the largest real estate owners in the world. You go into any town in Brazil, Argentina, Canada, Europe, any town, the best land is often occupied by the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And they do not sell their land, Shaddi. Mostly, sometimes they do, but most of it they don't. They do land leasing. And the reason for that is that the Catholic Church has a view of their religious institution as lasting for thousands of years. So they're not interested in selling land, but they do need money to do the things that they do. So they like land leasing, and after 50 years or 100 years, they get the land back. And I said the NCC should do the same, and they agreed. So what we did was we did a 50-year land lease with a 45-year option to renew on this property. And
why 45 and not 50?
It was, I don't think they wanted to go, the NCC wanted to go beyond 99 years. So
okay.
we said, hey, listen,
round it down.
In 95 years, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah.
I'll be a little bit too old. Even you'll be too old. So it was just kind of random. It could have been 99 years, but it wouldn't have been any more than that. I don't think you can go beyond 99 years. But anyway, so we did a 95-year land lease, 50 and then 45 option to renew. And what was really cool about this is that the land lease begins when the condominium corporation is registered. And all of the land lease payments are paid from the condo fees.
Okay.
So if you think that through, it means that Bill doesn't he doesn't even pay a single penny to get probably one of the best sites in Canada for development.
Yeah. Are there many of those left?
Yes. You'd be surprised at how many, I'm dealing with Paul now in BC. You would be surprised at how many families own property like this, Shaddi. I don't know the Kitchener-Waterloo situation, but in Vancouver, there are many, many, many families that have fabulous sites that just sit there, and they don't want to sell them, but they will land lease them to you.
Mm-hmm. So what? Sorry, finish the
no,
thought.
No,
my mind started running when you said that. But
good.
So being paid from the condo fees, I guess what percentage would that bump a condo fee above market for that? Like we're in the 44 to 49 cents in KW here a square foot.
So
without paying for the land.
Yeah. I don't know what it would be in Kitchener-Waterloo, but for a condo like this, where they start at $1 million and go up, the condo fees are the least of like the people who buy these You
Okay,
know,
so the
I mean,
market's not as conscious of the condo fee number.
it's not like this is not a budget condo.
Yeah.
And, but, okay, you ask the best questions. You really do. I'm going to show you one more. Okay. Because I've done a bunch of these. So I'm going to show you one more. So I do have a budget one that I can show you. Okay. So on the condo downtown, we paid so little. The present value of the lease was $5 million.
That's the value of the land lease.
That's the value of the lease discounted to today. It was $5 million.
Okay.
I sold that to the NCC with Mr. Malhotra. And, you know, I'm a realtor, but I was only representing Bill, not the NCC. And I could have got them 5 times that amount, but I don't represent them. I only represent, you know,
okay.
as a realtor. So, I mean, don't publish the fact, but we took them to the cleaners. I mean, the people who run government are not the most astute businessmen and women.
Yeah.
You know, they are not. I mean, I'm sure they're well motivated. At least most of the ones I've met are well motivated. But in terms of, you know, but as a realtor or as a coach, I only represent you or Mr. Malhotra or Bill. So, you know, if I take them to the cleaners, too fucking bad. Excuse my language.
Yeah, you've done your job for your client there.
But yeah, exactly. Because a realtor, I mean, you can't tell any lies.
Yeah.
You can't. But you don't have to say anything more than you want to. All right, so let me show you this one.
That's taking the number one rule of real estate: make money on the buy. That's taking that to the extreme, I think. There.
All right,
I like that.
This is another land lease that I did. All right, but you can see why I'm so keen on you to develop a business model so that you have a framework within which your team can work. Once you have that solidified, once we do that, kind of my job is done in a way. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to coach you forever because I'm really fond of you, but this is the most important thing that I can do for you is to set up a framework, help you form a team, get your business going. And because there's no reason why you can't have the same kind of growth that I had, you know, and today it's easier to grow than it was back in the 80s. Do you know what the interest rates were like in the 80s?
I've heard the nightmare stories of them. I haven't lived through them, but I've heard the nightmare stories of them.
They peaked at 19%.
Yeah.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. So I can do insured mortgages today if I buy down the rate for 1.69 right now.
1.69, and we're working with Paul in White Rock with CMHC. 50-year mortgage at 1.45%. If I brought some of the developers back from the 80s and told them this story, they would say, "Oh yeah, that's BS," but it's not. So this is called Blue Heron Co-op. This is a co-op, 4-story apartment building that we built in the 90s. And you can sort of see in the back here, there are some townhomes. So it's got this building here, which has 70 or 80 affordable units in it, and then it has about 20 or 30 townhouses in the back. But what I'm going to do is I go to the oblique view, and you can see over here, this land here is owned by St. John's Anglican Church, okay?
Okay.
This whole parcel here. And St. John's, this is where my kids were baptized. St. John's Anglican Church wanted to sell this site. And I said to them, this is ridiculous. We should land lease it because the church will have committed monthly recurring revenues for a very long period of time. And one of my clients was the Canada Co-op movement, which is now called Blue Heron Co-op. And so this is on a 65-year land lease with a 30-year renewal, so 95 years again. And each of these 2-bedroom apartments rent for about $900 a month. It's a co-op, and of that, about $50 or $60 of those monthly rents are for land leasing, which goes to the church. Okay, so if there's 100 units and it's $60 a month, which is I think about right, the church is getting $6,000 a month, $72,000 a year from this land lease. And and there's an inflation clause in there. So it goes up by the consumer price index less 0.5%. All right.
Okay.
And the reason I put in the minus 0.5%, it's a little bit of a break just in case we get inflation like we had in the 80s where it goes to 11, 12%. That would be a hell of a lot of inflation. So there's a little bit of a break in there if you sort of see what I'm getting at. From the co-op's point of view, they didn't have to find $1 million to buy the site. From the church's point of view, they're going to get about $6 million over the first 65 years. So it was a marriage made in heaven. So it wouldn't increase the condo fees by very much, maybe $60, $70 a month for something like this. Downtown, I don't know what it is. It would be considerably more. But still, I don't think it's a deal breaker.
How do the banks view land leases? I guess they're not writing a term outside of what the lease would be, so they're all right with it, or? Yeah,
I mean, if you have a 50-year land lease or a 65-year land lease with an option to renew, your mortgage could not be longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
But land leasing is not, I mean, they do it in land leases are very common in London. It's very common in New York. It's very common in Quebec. Do you know Place Ville-Marie in Montreal?
No, not familiar with that.
It's a huge building, one of the biggest buildings in Montreal. It's on a land lease. And 50 Wall Street, by the way, is a huge building in New York City. It's on a land lease. Do you know who owns the land?
No.
Mr. Trump.
Okay, I was going to guess that, but
well, there you go. You would have
say that
right.
name as little as I can.
People really don't like him in Canada, that's for sure. He's very divisive. But Shaddi, one of the most valuable assets that Donald Trump owns is the land under 50 Wall Street. He gets, I think, $3.5 million a year from that land lease.
Yeah. So my mind started going towards 659 and 667 King Mike's property there, and what stops people with prime properties like that from doing that model instead of the sale?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing with Paul. Because Paul wants to do 30 of these buildings, but he doesn't want to spend, Vancouver, $700 to $1,000 a square foot for a second-tier site, not a first-tier site, second-tier sites. So if you need a 20,000 square foot site and you're paying $1,000 a foot, that's 20 million bucks.
Yeah.
And so I said to Paul, we're working on this model, and he's, his first project's in White Rock, and we've done the deal now. It's going ahead. But it could be a $10 million, $20 million, check you have to write to buy a site like this in White Rock or Vancouver. Secondary sites. I'm not talking about downtown. Where it's even more expensive. And so with a land lease, you can go to these very wealthy families, and my sales pitch in White Rock to the family that owns it was, why don't you be like Donald Trump and his family? I mean, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about the business side, right?
Yeah.
And people just go, this is awesome. Like Shaddi, if you had a lot of land like this, rather than sell it, do what the Catholic Church does, do what St. John's Anglican Church does, do what the National Capital Commission does, only do it smarter than the NCC. Do it with 50 Wall Street and White Rock. It's a fabulous model. But for you as a developer, you could go and get a bunch of sites, I am sure, from wealthy families. And you would, but if you're going to do that, make sure you circle back to me, because I've done so many of them.
Yeah, no, the wheels are turning here. I'm interested in that. Can you tie it, do you fix your lease amount? Can you tie it to a percentage of revenue? Trying to mix the two models that you've shared with me here between percentage rent and land leasing here.
Yeah.
Trying to think
So if you were, okay.
Maybe this is for the next meeting.
No, I'm happy to answer your questions, but I don't want you to get mad at me if we don't get your whole agenda done.
Okay, well, so maybe I'm taking some notes, but
hang on, because you asked that question, I got to answer it.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I had in my model for the senator, so this goes back a long time now, 30 years, was we were not going to sell any of the land around the Canadian Tire Center. We were going to land lease it. But wait. Now, so if I'm advising Shaddi, who owns the property, I put on one hat. If I'm advising Shaddi and he's kind of quote unquote a buyer, I put on a different hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the hat that you put on when you're quote unquote the seller. So what I was going to do is I was going to land lease a parcel very close to the Canadian Tire Center for a major hotel. I had a number of people interested. And if the Sens hadn't gone bankrupt, all of that land around the Canadian Tire Center would have been on land lease. I wouldn't have sold 1 square foot of it.
Yeah.
And the land lease would have had, for the hotel, would have had a base rent. It would have been triple net, which means absolutely worry-free to the landlord, in other words, to the Canadian Tire Center. Would have had a percentage rent in there. But wait, and in the condo fees, I was going to put in suites and season tickets. So that the hotel or the office buildings or any of the other people who would develop around would be on a land lease and would pay to the senators, and this is sustainable, would pay to the senators a land lease, triple net, a percentage of their of whatever revenues they're generating. If it's a hotel and a restaurant and a bunch of other stuff, and some shops, it'll generate a lot of revenues. You get a percentage rent, and they were required to lease a suite, so that if you're running a hotel, there's a hockey game across the street, you have a whole hotel full of guests, you have all the tickets you'd ever want, to have a private suite for your hotel guests. And all the hotels that I was talking to, I had about 4 or 5 interested major hotel chains and investors. They were super keen on the model. They were fine with it. It would have been unbelievably profitable, and the senators would have been sustainable, but we never got there because they went broke first.
Mm-hmm.
So that answers your question. All right, now let's go back to your original agenda. What do you want to do first or last?
Yeah, so just bringing it up on the other screen here, the first one on there. So tenants during COVID. So
We're talking about Tim Hortons. I'm concerned about Tim Hortons.
Yeah, me too a little bit. So we're firm and binding and deposit paid at One Queen, and we also I think we're getting an offer to lease from have you ever eaten at a Zteca before?
What's it called?
Zteca. It's a Mexican kind of bowl style restaurant. Yeah, me too. So I think we've got one coming from there for another suite. But so Tim Hortons, firm and binding. The whole background with him, his name's Greg. He has 8 or 9 different franchise locations. All of them have drive-throughs. The one that's being built at One Queen does not. So it's right downtown. It's an inline store. So obviously with COVID, he's worried about it. So we met on site a couple of weeks ago, and he had the chat and he's asking for a reduction from Tim Hortons in the royalty that's paid back, and also in some funds and helping build it out, which he thinks he's going to get. But he's nervous, and he's asking what we would do. So at a minimum, because we're behind schedule anyways, we're going to push out the fixturing period, which we wouldn't be ready for him anyways. So that we'll kind of position that this way. But I guess the specific question: what happens? Have you ever dealt with a tenant where you're firm and binding? And I feel like we're in control with the signed lease and things like that. What would happen if this guy tries to pull shoot on all of that?
So,
and I know like there's the legal part of it in reviewing the lease and stuff like that, but how, I've never been in a scenario. And
so
sorry,
I understand the question.
Okay.
So there is under common law, let's say you have a tenant, let's say Tim Hortons was in place and they want to break their lease. Okay, same thing, whether it's a lease in advance of occupancy or they're in place, doesn't matter. And they just say, Shaddi, we're breaking our lease, goodbye.
Yeah.
And we're not paying you any more money. To hell with you. Okay? That happens. So you would think with, say, Tim Hortons being a big company, and with this guy being a credible guy, that you could just sit back and say, no, you got to pay your rent, whether you're there or not, you're paying your rent. But there's a principle under common law, it's called you have to mitigate your losses.
Yeah.
So as a landlord, you probably know this, as a landlord, you can't just sit around, drink beer, have a glass of rum, smoke a cigar, and say, doesn't matter, I've got Apple, I've got Facebook, I've got Google, I've got Tim Hortons on the hook, I can just relax. So what you have to do, if he gives you notice that he's going to terminate this lease, you have legal remedies and you can pursue those legal remedies against him. But at the same time, you have to put in place a process by which you diligently try and release this, and you document everything you do. So he notifies you, say, 1st of September, I'm not going here. too bad, Shaddi, I'm not paying any more money. You keep my deposit. Goodbye.
Yeah.
At that point, you have to give him a letter which says, what's his name again?
His name is Greg.
So, Greg, we are in receipt of that. You are still legally bound by the lease. You have to pay, according to the lease. But I'm going to tell you that we will take every step that we possibly can to release it, to reduce your obligations to us, and to mitigate our losses. So you need to prepare a letter back and tell him that, yes, he's still on the hook, but you will mitigate your losses and you will reduce his amount as best you can. And then you document everything. Having said that, in my experience, because, we used to have about 1.5 million square feet of commercial space that we leased before it went bankrupt. What I would do in every case is I would negotiate with these people and I would ask them for a lump sum. What is the total amount? Oh, is it a 10-year lease?
Yeah, it's a 10 with it's either a 10 plus 10 or a 10 plus 5 plus 5, but it can be up to a 20-year lease. Yeah.
I mean, how much would his base rent be per month? Just his minimum rent.
Just base, not additional
not the
rent.
Gross rent, not the gross.
Yes.
Base.
So he's about $3,700 a month.
Yeah. So if I take $3,700 a month and I multiply that by 120 months, it's about $444,000 that he would pay in base rent over the next 10 years. Maybe the present value of that is $120,000. I don't know, pick a number. But I'm just saying what I would do is I would probably negotiate a lump sum. Hey, give me $150,000, go away.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about when you told me that there's no drive-through here, there is another thing that you could do with this building. And I just was looking at it before we got on the call. And where is Tim Hortons going to go?
Where are we here, Walter? Okay, so turn right or left. Let me see where we are. Yeah, so it'd be the other way. Yeah, so straight. If we walk down the street here, it's right on the corner. So
would it be here?
No, kitty corner, wrong building. Yeah, so see where the green and white green's kind of side. No, other way.
Shit.
We passed by it.
Where?
No.
Oh, here.
No, other way. Complete 180.
Okay.
The white building.
It's this one here. It's this one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right in the corner where the brown brick and the green siding is.
What the hell is this?
What's that?
There's like some sort of shade on this thing.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
So they're going here, right?
Yeah, the corner, kind of the corner cap of it. Yeah.
So this is okay. I got it. All right. So how about I'm just inventing things for you. You may not like this, but I think he might like it. How about if we did a pedestrian drive-through?
Yeah, I bounced that idea around with him actually too. A walkthrough, we call it.
And
that's a preliminary conversation from 10 days or so ago. So his action items were having those chats with Tim Hortons, and mine was thinking through it for what we were going to offer him here. So
one of the things that I've done in some of the buildings that I've been involved with is, oh shit, come on, there we go. One of the things I've done is I've created these wonderful patios, and I have created these windows that slide. So you can literally, you don't have to drive through, but you can literally walk by, and you can place, you don't even have to go inside,
Yeah.
And you can, I hadn't heard the term before, the walkthrough, but I love that. So rather than a drive-through, it's a walkthrough. I'm going to steal that term. And what I would say to you is you could have these sliding windows, just the way they have it at the drive-through. And yes, I'll have a double-double.
Yeah, that's one of the ideas we bounced around. Haven't done any work in planning or anything like that, but there is some precedent in not in Kitchener but in Waterloo where there are service windows like that.
And what I think you would combine it with, this would be, I think, really, really great to do, is the city of Edmonton, Shaddi, is now focused on creating patios that work all year round, including the wintertime.
Yeah,
So,
I was reading a bit about that actually.
I'm sure you were. And, you know, I do some work out in Edmonton, and I know some of the planners out there, and they have some very, very good planners out there, which for me to say that there's something called a good planner is like a friggin' miracle. But what they're going to do is they're going to copy what they've done in Copenhagen. In Copenhagen, they are running their patios throughout the winters, and their winters in Copenhagen are very tough, very windy, very cold, and very dark, but they're running year round, and people are really digging it. So what I was thinking is, in a way to entice this guy, is I'm going to call it a walkthrough. Create a walkthrough with those, you know, service windows and a patio that runs right throughout the year. People will come from all over here. You put heaters out there, as they've done in Edmonton. The one thing that they haven't yet figured out in Edmonton that they should is that, in addition to doing what you see here on the screen here, where they've got heaters and they keep the snow off of it, etc., is they should be planting dwarf evergreens around it.
No, that's protect from the wind a little bit.
This is, I think I showed you what my son-in-law did, me and Pat. We did that funky video there when we were out at, we were at Picton, you know. You plant some dwarf evergreens. This is the best wind protection you'll ever get, but can you imagine what it would be like for Tim Hortons to have a patio here, really, really well done, you know, with a really good quality protection against the winter winds, you know, place with, you know, service windows. I think that would be, in some ways, I think better than a drive-through.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because the picture we're looking at is not an accurate representation of that area now. So the left side of the building on Queen Street, the city just is about 90% of the way through spending about 2.4 million on probably a 200-meter stretch. So that's all been ripped up and kind of has interlocking stone sidewalks and nice lights on it, and areas to lock up a bike. So it's been redone and would be a good area to feature now.
If you had a patio that had music on it and was winterized, it would be really something. One Queen, I mean, this, you know, and that Tim Hortons would be very successful. And guess what? If you got, say, if he walks and he gives you, say, $125,000 or $150,000 or $100,000, whatever you get out of him, you'll put somebody else in there with this idea that will embrace it.
Yeah.
And they'll probably pay you more.
Yeah.
So that was my answer.
Yeah, okay. I'd agree. Okay. Yeah. No, that one's helpful.
So what else do we want to deal with before the end of the call?
That was the biggest one that I wanted to get to. I think some of the others might be, if we got into them, were I mean, the only other one was kind of succession, but that might be a longer one for next time.
Yeah, we'll talk about succession next time. And I was very interested in what you were doing with these guys here.
Yeah. So these are guys I know very well. They ended up buying Riverbank off of us, and we maintained some ownership in the general partnership there. He's been familiar with Mike's building from a while ago. I introduced the two of them probably 5 years ago, and then just ran into him recently, gave him an update. But so he's away right now, but we're gonna get together for a chat about the site when he's back. And then he also has engaged an architect and is doing a little bit of massing and planning between 20 Guelph and 7 Queen as well. Yeah. That was an idea I threw out a year ago to him, because 20 Guelph is in a floodplain. You're never going to build easily on there, but 7 Queen is not.
So you remember, Shaddi, we did go through this. Remember we talked about it. So you know that the key thing here, even with the floodplain, there's cool stuff that you can do with it. Remember we talked about that?
I vaguely do, yeah.
Well, even if it's in a floodplain, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You remember, you know how keen I am on things like outdoor patios, how keen I am on something I call playland, you know, where you can have pickleball courts and bocce courts and picnic tables and food trucks. So there's a lot of animation you can do even inside the floodplain that will pass muster and will make you money.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that's coming back to me. I do remember that conversation. The issue why you need the two of them is 20 Guelph, the one at the top of the screen. That whole site is in the floodplain. So I see what you mean about some stuff to add, and that would be great for that community. Right across the street, so the markers on 7 Queen right now, right across, you can see the little blue marker that says Mill Pond Records and Books.
Here it is.
So that and the building to the left of it has been bought, and there's a 6-story apartment going up, 6 or 7-story apartment, and then commercial on the main floor going up. So it's an up and coming corner for sure. And the nice thing about this is in Cambridge. Cambridge is made up of Preston, Hespeler, and Galt. This is Hespeler, which is closest access to the 401. So you're from where we're looking at now, you're under 5 minutes to being on the 401.
Yeah, it's incredible. Great.
And
location.
you know what's happening with people moving out of Toronto and into the suburbs and things like that, and out of the GTA. This is
so when HIP
a good option.
When HIP Developments has some sketches here, I'm sure they'll be very good. But you and I have worked now quite hard on all these animation ideas.
Yeah.
And you know, I did a little bit of work for the Daniels Corporation in Toronto. Do you know the Daniels Corporation?
No, I don't.
They're the second biggest condo builder in Toronto, and they were very, very early on in this animation stuff that I teach, and so their condos in downtown Toronto and around Toronto and the GTA, their condos tend to sell for about 6% more, not because they're that much better, but because they've really embraced the playland concept. So
okay, yeah.
So you know, the fact that you have some land in the floodplain that you can't really build on, but you could use it as a playland. What the Daniels Corp has found is that whether it's a rental apartment or a condominium, is that people who play together, socialize together, and stay longer and pay more money.
Okay.
So when they, you know, I'm very big on this.
Daniels Corp?
Daniels Corp. You just put them in your Google search bar. They'll, you know, we'll do it for you. Second largest condo builder in Toronto, and here they are. And there, this is Daniels Corp. You can see it on the, you know, I mean, you know, they build pretty big buildings.
Yeah.
So their motto is love where you live.
Okay.
And one of the things that they do as part of the animation is they build these playlands inside and outside. And they also, on each one of their projects, Shaddi, for the first 2 years after completion, they hire, depending on how big they are, a few young people as GOs. GOs. That stands for Gentil Organisateur. It's a term that is actually trademarked, I think, by Club Med. Do you know Club Med?
Yep.
Okay. So if you go to a Club Med, I used to go to Club Med when I was young, you know, you meet women, right? I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was young once, you know. And so when you go to a Club Med, you're not allowed to eat alone. You know, if you sit at a table by yourself, a GO, a Gentil Organisateur, it's like a camp counselor for adults, okay? Will come over and say, hey, what's your name? I'm Bruce. Where are you from? I'm from Canada. Oh, I know lots of Canadians. Listen, we've got a table over here, you know, with some people from Germany, from the United Kingdom, a couple from Spain. You're coming over with us. Oh, no. Club Med, you're not allowed to sit alone. Oh, okay. So you go over and you meet some people, and they mix you really well. And then they run through the GO, and you're sitting there, Shaddi, with your wife, and I'm sitting with my wife, and we're having a couple of drinks. They get you up, you play water volleyball. You do, you know, they just get you going. So what Daniels Corporation does is they hire these young people, they run around these buildings, and if it's an older demographic, bridge night, bocce.
Okay.
If it's a younger generation, it's beer pong and beach volleyball. So,
okay.
And when you look at the history of their units. Ask any of the realtors in Toronto. If there's a Daniels Corp condo that comes up, it's going to sell faster and for more because they're hard to get because they've created a community. After 2 years, the agreement is that the condo corporation absorbs the cost of the GO, so the camp counselors. But
Okay.
Daniels Corp budgets, and it doesn't cost very much to hire, you know, and by the way, they hire really, really handsome men, young men, and beautiful women.
I can imagine, yeah.
Oh yeah. And but communities that play together, stay together, they stay for longer. If it's an apartment building, people will stay longer because they don't want to lose their weekly volleyball game.
Yeah.
So when I looked at 20 Guelph and the, you know, lot next to it, I see opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, right along the river too.
It's right on the river.
An added feature there too. But
All
yeah,
right.
I'll definitely share when we have some masking and renderings and stuff like that. I'll share whatever comes up from them.
And because some of this stuff, you know, HIP just isn't good to know, but you do.
Mm-hmm. They're the right developer to be forward thinking and
Yeah.
You know, might be interested to have Scott join us on a call sometime. I know is a huge Habs fan, so he'd appreciate some of your
we can talk
your
hockey.
Conversation here too. Yeah,
I'd love to meet him. I'm sure he's just like all the guys that I met through you. They're neat guys. So you're more than welcome to add him in. But let's see what he comes up with first, and then you and I will add something. And let's ask Scott to join us on a call. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to go over right now?
No, that's it right now. Thank you. Thank you for sending the Belleville stuff. Had a first glance through that and got to spend some time digging in, and I'll be in touch.
All I did with the Belleville stuff is I just hived it off into 11% ownership interest. So you can have 1, you can have 2, you can have 3, you can have 4. I mean, you know, I don't think I'd give you 5 because, you know, then you know more of it than me. But I just divided it up into 11.1% interest, and you can stack them up however you want. You could buy 1 or you could buy, you know, 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you. And I think Dawn is going to go back to Belleville, and she's going to give you a tour of the property as well.
Yeah, please keep me posted. I have it kind of on my list, maybe after Labor Day if there's some time. But like, I mean, either with or without Dawn, I might bug you depending on the schedule. Yeah, please keep me posted when she's going down.
I would really, I look forward to that. And if you feel like you want to participate in it, it would really help you for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that decision as quick as we can. Part of it is a couple of refinances that emails have been coming in as we've been on the call here too. So
I understand you've got a lot on your plate. And listen, Shaddi, if you decide the answer is no, just tell me that. No is fine.
I will.
You know,
are you set right now for the closing of it, or is it?
Well, I could use a little help for that. You know,
okay.
If I could sell 1 or 2 of these units, it would certainly help with the closing for sure.
Okay.
I think I have enough money to close it, but it'd be tight. And so if I could, you know, just because I work for a living, as you know, so if you decide to buy 1 of them, that would certainly help.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll. It's staying near the top of the list.
Thank you.
I won't try not to drag it on. Take care, Bruce.
All the best. And you'll see the YouTube video in a few hours.
Okay. Thank you.